We're about to go live shortly here. Looks like it's working now. I'll tell you in a second here.
Don, did you see that Middlesex has declared masking mandatory, and so is London, indoors?
Okay, it says we are live now. Okay.
Thank you.
Our live instruction.
All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. We've been having fun with getting everybody in, and that's why we're a little late starting, but welcome to this regular planning meeting of council on Monday, July the 20th. We have every member of council present. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing and hearing none. We have no delegations, or I'm sorry, we have minutes first that I'm going to ask Diane to read the motion. You need a mover?
No, sorry.
Okay.
The motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Deputy Mayor Marks, seconded by Councillor Rowe, that the minutes of the regular meeting of council dated Monday, June the 8th, and the regular planning meeting of council dated Monday, June the 22nd, 2020 be adopted.
Any questions or concerns? If not, I'll ask Diane to call the vote.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair? Councillor Fair?
It's unmute.
You're muted.
Unmute, Bill.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin.
Yes.
The resolution carries.
Thank you. We have no delegations. We have one item under correspondence for action concerning the Integrity Commissioner and the contract extension. So I would ask you to read the motion.
The motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Deputy Mayor Marks, seconded by Councillor Rowe, that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Central Elgin approve participation in the contract extension with Independent Resolutions, Inc. as Integrity Commissioner, closed meeting investigator, ombudsman, effective January the 1st, 2021 until December 31st, 2022.
Okay, are there any questions or concerns? Hearing and seeing none, I would ask Diane to call the vote, please.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Councillor Fair, we're not able to hear you. I don't know. You're still muted. We haven't heard you.
Phone call.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
Mayor Martin?
Yes.
The resolution carries.
Thank you. Now we have many items here under correspondence for council's information. We normally take them all together unless there's some you wish taken out. Maybe before Diane reads that motion, I'll ask you if there's some you wish taken out. Does anybody have anyone they want taken out and supported or? Yes.
Mayor Martin, I'd just like to ask our treasurer, Ramona, if you're in line, is there any advantage for number 9, the farm tax property rate, to support the proposal there? You could comment on that, please.
I would agree with supporting that, through you, Madam Mayor. I would agree with supporting that particular piece of correspondence. What happens is that a farm reverts to a residential tax rate, and then the people have to reapply for that to be taxed at the farm tax rate upon a sale. So we have had a dozen of these so far this year, and people who have more of a farming community have a lot more volume in that regard, and it throws off your tax rates.
Yes, thank you. So for that, I'd like to support that one. Could I get a seconder on that?
Okay, we will deal with each of them in just a moment, but that's number 9 we want to take out. Is there any other one that someone would like to take out or discuss in any way?
Madam Mayor, it's Colleen.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Rowe.
Yes, so I was curious about endorsing number 2, 4, and 5, and I had a question about number 1. And the question for number 1 was just around the letter itself. The last line of the letter says, once our application has been approved, or we plan on undertaking these activities once our application has been approved. So is this letter after the fact, or are they still waiting for something else to happen?
It's a good question. Mr. Leach, do you know?
I'm not sure the status of the application. I would suspect that the reference to approval would be reference to Health Canada's approval of the application, but it's not municipal approval.
So I guess my question around that is really, have they started planting or not, and should they be, if nothing is quite through the process yet?
That, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Rowe, that would really be an issue with Health Canada. It's not a municipal issue because, again, we're not regulating the cultivation of cannabis.
And they have been planting, I'm sure of that, but we've seen that. But I don't know, you know, as Mr. Leach says, we have no control. That's Health Canada that regulates that. And I know, just so we're all aware too, this letter went to the City Council as well at their last meeting, and we have arranged, we just haven't set the date yet, for a public meeting so that the ratepayers who were concerned about this in their area and such, there will be a public meeting. The St. Thomas City Council have agreed we are going to host it. We just have to set the date. It'll be in August, but we will let everyone know once we've set the date for that. And maybe at that time, some of these questions could be answered, because we're encouraging the group, the Mira Corporation, who is a subsidiary of Havana, correct? And this Countryside Cannabis Corps is a subsidiary of Mira. So anyway, we're asking that they be present at that meeting as well. We'll see what happens, but just so you know, that's what's happening with that. Councillor Rowe, you had some others you wanted to discuss?
Yes, number 2, 4, and 5. So 2 was around the rural broadband, and for the most part, we've supported, I believe council has supported the idea of expanding the broadband across Ontario or the country. This is just a little bit of a different one, being shovel-ready project. So to me, just having those 3 words in this makes it a slightly different ask. So I would suggest endorsing that one. And then 4 is just the funding for Southwestern Ontario from the County of Elgin. So I think we should absolutely endorse that one. And then 5 is the rent assistance program, where a commercial residential building, if it's less than a certain percentage, they don't get to participate in it. And I'm not certain that I truly understand the benefit of doing that, other than saving the government some money perhaps. So 2, 4, and 5.
Okay, and number 9, which is Dennis's. Is there anything else that anyone wants to?
Bill Fair.
Yes, Bill.
On number 12, the COVID funding, I realize our provincial and federal governments are doing something. They seem to be supporting a lot of the larger municipalities, but I would like to endorse that one because we need every nickel of funding we can get. And I know I'm on charity boards, and they're having a terrible time with this COVID. So I'd really like to support that, which is number 12. And
Thank
the
you.
other one, just a question on 14, that land planning tribunal. Does that now mean that the PRESPA is only going to build one building and it's going to be 9-story?
No, it's 2 5-story buildings. The original proposal was 1.9.
Oh, okay.
His revised proposal was the 2.5, and they've put conditions on it, but they have agreed, the tribunal did agree to let them build the 2.5 story.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering if we were going back to the 9, but
No.
that was all.
Okay, and then number 13, I'm not asking to withdraw or to take it out, but I'm just saying that's the group that we will be having the public meeting with. They are talking here about bylaws, and just so that everyone understands what's going on, I'm going to ask Mr. Leach if he would explain the reason why we can't do bylaws like that at this time.
Madam Mayor, the correspondence makes reference to a bylaw that Dutton Dunwich passed. My understanding is Dutton Dunwich passed that bylaw as an interim control bylaw under the Planning Act. So basically, as council's received reports in the past about interim control, that requires the completion of a study. So basically it pauses things. But in this particular case, there's no approvals, as we just talked about with that countryside correspondence, for the municipality. So there's no permits that can be denied for cultivation anyways that would be subject to the bylaw. Secondly, the bylaw is not written as a regulatory bylaw, so it said it's not thou shalt not do such a thing. It's a bylaw that can't be enforced really. There's no clause in there that talks about it's enforceable under the Provincial Offences Act, and it's not written like a regulatory bylaw that if you contrasted that, say, with the parking bylaw or something like that. So in staff's opinion, it really isn't, an effective tool and couldn't be supported before the LPAT if there was a challenge by any particular individual or grower or producer.
Thank you, Mr. Leach. Hopefully we'll get answers to the public and these people's questions when we have the public meeting. So that would be helpful, I'm sure. Okay, so at the moment we have 2, 4, 5, 9, and 12 to remove. Is there anyone else that has anything they want endorsed or removed? If not, I'm going to ask Diane to read the motion to take them together, omitting those ones. So go ahead, Diane.
So procedurally, Madam Mayor, I've gotten the resolutions that were raised by Councillor Kravitz, Councillor Rowe, and Councillor Fair. Are there seconders on those motions?
Okay, yeah, we need to have a seconder. Councillor Rowe moved 2, 4, and 5. We need a seconder for each of those, please.
I will second number 5, Fiona.
Fiona, 5. Tom, which one?
Second one.
2?
2, yeah.
2?
I'll take 4.
Dennis will do 4 then. Okay, so Dennis Kravitz and Tom Marks have done 2 and 4, and Fiona has done 5. Number 9 is being brought out, the farm tax, property tax one. Dennis, you moved that, correct?
Yeah.
And we need a seconder for that one then.
Bill Fair, I would second that.
Thank you, Bill. And then we need number 12, which is Bill Fair moving. We need a seconder for that one. Tom Marks seconds that. Okay. So I'm going to ask, we'll go through all these motions now then. I'm going to ask Diane to read the first one.
Okay, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Deputy Mayor Marks, the correspondence items number 1 through number 14, excluding number 2, number 4, number 5, number 9, and number 12, be received as information and filed.
Call the vote, please.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin.
Yes.
The resolution passes.
Thank you. Next resolution.
Okay. Let me just see which ones I've got here. First motion moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Deputy Mayor Marks, that correspondence received from the Municipality of Mississippi Mills respecting support for rural broadband be endorsed.
Call the vote.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
The resolution carries.
Just for your information, County Council have set up a connectivity committee to deal with Rural Broadband, and Councillor or Deputy Mayor Marks sits on that committee with Deputy Mayor Dominique Giguère from Malahide, as well as public members and staff members. So hopefully we will have more than just endorsing these, we'll have some action going forward as well. So if you'd like to move on to the next one.
Next motion, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Deputy Mayor Marks, that correspondence received from the County of Elgin respecting support for broadband advocacy funding for Southwestern Ontario be endorsed.
Vote.
Councillor Cook,
Yes.
Councillor Cravitz,
Yes.
Councillor Fair,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks,
Yes.
Councillor Roberts,
Yes.
Councillor Rowe,
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Next one.
Next motion, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Councillor Roberts, that correspondence received from the town of Kingsville respecting rent assistance program be endorsed.
Call the vote, please.
Councillor Cook,
Yes.
Councillor Cravitz,
Yes.
Councillor Fair,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks,
Yes.
Councillor Roberts,
Yes.
Councillor Rowe,
Yes.
and Mayor Martin.
Yes.
The resolution carries.
Thank you. Next one.
Next motion, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Cravitz, seconded by Councillor Fair, that correspondence received from the Township of Perth to Agriculture respecting farm property tax rate program be endorsed.
Call the vote, please.
Councillor Cook,
Yes.
Councillor Cravitz,
Yes.
Councillor Fair,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks,
Yes.
Councillor Roberts,
Yes.
Councillor Rowe,
Yes.
and Mayor Martin.
Yes.
The resolution carries.
Thank you. And the final one.
The last motion, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Fair, seconded by Deputy Mayor Marks, that correspondence received from the City of Oshawa respecting COVID-19 funding be endorsed.
Call the vote.
Councillor Cook,
Yes.
Councillor Cravitz,
Yes.
Councillor Fair,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks,
Yes.
Councillor Roberts,
Yes.
Councillor Rowe,
Yes.
and Mayor Martin.
Yes.
The resolution carries.
Thank you. We're now moving on to Central Elgin Planning Office, and Mr. McClure is on the call, so he can answer any questions. Does anyone have any questions? I'll have Diane read the motion first, and then I'll ask if there are questions.
The motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Deputy Mayor Marks, seconded by Councillor Roberts, that report CEP 2920 be received as information, and that council has no objections to consent application number E1320 Elvin Henry Helka 46541 Helka line, subject to the following recommended conditions. Severed land be merged in title with the abutting land to the west, 46595 Helka line, that subsection 3 or 5 of section 50 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 as amended shall apply to any subsequent conveyance or transaction involving the subject lands. The solicitor for the applicant is to provide an undertaking whereby they inform the committee in writing that the lands are being conveyed to an abutting property owner, and thus a merger of title will take place, which merger shall include all interests held, inclusive of mortgagee's interest. The municipality of Central Elgin be provided with a copy of the reference plan, and a drainage reassessment be done if necessary at the owner's expense.
Thank you. Would you call the vote, please?
Councillor Cook,
I'm sorry. Does
Yes.
anyone have any questions? I forgot. Does anyone have any questions on this planning application? If not, go ahead and call the vote. Thank you.
Councillor Cook,
Yes.
Councillor Cravitz,
Yes.
Councillor Fair,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks,
Yes.
Councillor Roberts,
Yes.
Councillor Rowe,
Yes.
and Mayor Martin.
Yes.
The resolution carries.
Thank you. Mr. McClure, you are welcome to depart if you wish. Thanks for joining us. Now under the CAO number 1, and this is the Health and Safety Policy Statement. It's an annual thing. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes. Thank you. Mr. McClure, you are welcome to depart if you wish.
I'm having a hard time. I'm hearing sounds in the background, but they're not coming through to us. I don't know if it's, maybe somebody just didn't have theirs muted and someone was talking behind them. Anyway, I will ask you to read the motion then, please.
The motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Deputy Mayor Marks, seconded by Councillor Rowe, that the Council of the Municipality of Central Elgin acknowledges review of the written occupational health and safety policy statement and directs staff to post a signed copy in the workplace as stated in the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and that Council be informed that the administrative and outside workers' health and safety committees performed their annual review of the health and safety policies as per report CAO 1120.
Thank you. Any questions? If not, would you call the vote, please?
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Krebitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes, you can hear me now? Yes?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin.
Yes.
The resolution carries.
Thank you. Now the CAO report 1220, which is the bylaw to regulate discharge of firearms and archery. So I'm sure there will be lots of questions and discussion on this one. So, and obviously we are going to receive this, but then they're also seeking what direction council want to take on this. So, questions, concerns, thoughts, please.
Bill Fair.
Go ahead, Bill.
I agree with that a lot of people are misunderstanding this and thinking it applies to agricultural land and things like that. That was never any intention for that. In Ward 4, we have a large, highly populated area, and I've had feedback from many of my constituents, and I really would like to move ahead with some sort of a bylaw to regulate gunfire and archery around any kind of a populated area. London has it, other areas have it, and I think we would be wise to move on it, get it in place, and regulate it so that there is no gunfire within a certain distance of any populated areas. And I think we were better off to do this now than wait till somebody gets hurt. The one area that started this problem is just at the corner of Talbot and Wellington Road, which is right on the edge of the old Lyndhurst area. There isn't any fencing. There are public paths through there. I know the landowner said that it's his own property, which it is, and people have been using it. He did, as far as I know, he did put up no trespassing signs. I think he could very easily, if he wanted to, fence it to make sure that the public understands clearly where the line is. But I just do not feel comfortable with gunfire so close to a highly populated area. Only one accident is required, and I don't want that to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fair. Other comments and questions, please. Deputy Mayor Marks.
I'm not against a bylaw. In due time, probably it'll clear some things up, although Township of Yarmouth was well over 100 years old before it amalgamated into the Central Elgin 20 odd years ago, and we never really had much problem. I would point out that this ratepayer that was shooting the gun down there was, they said it was legal and everything else. I know he's done it several times since. No one has noticed. We are still under a state of emergency, and Madam Mayor, you certainly can agree with this, how busy and overworked our staff are. And I'll commend them because, you know, we're in some very trying times, state of emergency. I'm not against this. I would just like it to be a low priority item because frankly, I don't think staff have time for this. There's so many more urgent things coming up. So I'll go on record, I'm not against a bylaw in due time, but I will point out if we did pass it, that gentleman can still go down and shoot his gun there lawfully.
Fiona?
Yes, go ahead, Fiona.
I agree with Deputy Mayor Marks. Again, I'm not against a bylaw. My I guess my concern is that we are putting this ahead, as Deputy Mayor Marks had said. We have other things that we've already tasked our staff with. This, I understand how it was alarming to people, but the OPP had been there and had determined that there was no wrongdoing at the time. Everybody, I'm aware of many people within our municipality who are registered gun owners, who are responsible. The issues that I've asked in doing some research since is how many issues have we had, and I have not had a response to that there have been any. So I do think this is something that we should look at, but I do believe that staff have already made us aware that they have many things on the books to look after right now. I don't think this should be at the top of it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to ask Mr. Leach, I will get to you in a moment, Councillor Kravitz. Mr. Leach, there's expressions that people are interested in having this bylaw. Is this too much to ask at this time? Are you overloaded at the moment? Or who would, I'm assuming that Mr. McComb or Mr. McClure would be the one preparing the maps, et cetera, but I'm just asking.
Madam Mayor, I guess that's a difficult question to answer in the sense that, if council deems it to be important, and we'll get it done. If council feels that it's something that I'm hearing from a couple council members that maybe should be looked at, but maybe not this year in the midst of the emergency situation, but perhaps next year when, or at such time that the emergency has passed. So if council, instructs staff that they would like to move forward with this now, then certainly we'll make it a priority and get it done and work with council. If council thinks it's more appropriate to look at it in a year or two's time, then that's also workable.
Thank you. I want to remind people too, we do have this bylaw already in Port Stanley. So that was part of the reason we brought this forward, was to make it consistent throughout the municipality in only built up areas. It's not going to affect people in rural areas or hunting, et cetera, that is already regulated. So anyway, that we did have 1,700 people do the survey, but we don't really and truly know for sure how many of them are from Central Elgin. That they claim to be from certain parts of it, but the numbers of people that live in those parts, it would have been very difficult. They'd had to have every single person living in the area doing it. But anyway, Councillor Kravitz, you had said you wanted to speak. So
yes, I was just going to mention the Bang the Table survey that was done as well, that we had over 1,700 people respond to it. And in most of the charts, 80 to 90% of the people are opposed to Central Elgin spending time drafting the bylaw or spending time on this at this particular time. So I would like to see this perhaps put off till next year or the following year, until such time where things are a little more normal, shall I say. So, thank you.
yep. Certainly right now with the third level of opening, now that we've reached phase 3, there's a lot of work to be done again, as there was when we went to phase 2.
Bill,
Go ahead, Bill, and then Tom. Yes.
all right, I would deem it as very important, and London clearly has dealt with it. They said, I believe their bylaw says 200 meters from a school or any public area. I would lean towards that, and I know the responsible gun owners are out there, but it only requires one accident, and when you're within that close an area to the public, I don't think we should be gambling on this, if you will, because I think it is a very serious situation. And like I said, it only requires one accident, and then we've got trouble.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Marks, you wish to speak.
I think I have a long record of being erring on the side of safety, and I have to acknowledge Councillor Fair for going right to bat for his residents, and I admire that. But I don't share the same enthusiasm for it. I favor a bylaw. I just don't think it should be a priority at the present time. I'm not against it.
Thank you. Other comments or questions, please?
Madam Mayor, Colleen?
Yes, go ahead, Colleen.
Likewise, I do believe that there should be a Central Elgin-wide bylaw. I would just trust staff to determine where it fits in their priority level, but for the purpose of this particular meeting, I would say to pursue, and if that takes the year or year and a half, 2 years, whatever it is, then at least it's on the list of things to look after.
Thank you. So you're suggesting that the motion would say they pursue it, but with unlimited time to do it in an appropriate time frame according to their,
Yes,
how busy they are.
yes.
And I will say, Councillor Roberts, when you mentioned there've been no incidents, I know of at least 2 in the Sparta area in the last 4 years that I'm aware of where people were firing guns within the village, and the police became involved because of it. But
Mayor Martin, yes, thank you. And again, I'm happy, thank you for passing that on. That wasn't brought to my attention. But I think, and I shouldn't speak for Deputy Mayor Marks, but I agree with what Councillor Rowe said, and that's essentially what I was saying. I do agree this is something that should be looked at. Put it in the rotation. I just don't want to hand tie staff to it. So where they feel that time is available, then yes, let's look at it. I just, I'm not asking, I think we have in the last 6 months asked for a lot of things to be brought forward by them. And so they can only do that so many times. So this is one, let's put it in to be looked at, but staff will know what their timeline can be. And I'm happy to go with what they deem to be necessary with it.
Thank
Bill
you.
Fair.
yes, Bill.
I agree with Councillor Rowe, and I do not want this issue to be dead in the water. I want it to happen, and I can understand the limitations of staff. We're in very, very trying times, so I could live with that. But I would rather than maybe just the unlimited, let's make sure that it stays on a current list of some sort.
Well, we could say that we want it done within the term of council for certain. That could be.
I could agree to that.
That makes sense, Mr. Leach. Go ahead.
Madam Mayor, yes, council could say that during the term. Or the other thing I was going to suggest, Madam Mayor, is that council could set a date to bring it back on the agenda, whatever date next year that council deems, and it comes up, and at that point, it's going to come back up. And council at that point can see what the situation is with COVID and whether it can be dealt with then or whether it needs to be deferred again. So January 1st, April 1st, July 1st, 2021, just some possible dates that it will definitely come back to council if that's council's desire.
Okay, well, what are your thoughts as a council? Councillor Kravitz?
Yeah, I think we can't be too vague with this. As has been indicated, we have to set a firm date if we're going to do something like this. And I like Mr. Leach's suggestion that let's set a date to bring this back to council a year from now.
July 1st.
Or prior to summer even, to bring further discussion on the item. But to,
Possibly the June meeting rather than July, just because we don't meet much in the summer.
yeah, and I think something like that would be better than having it left vague into the time frames or when time's available. Then we can give staff direct direction rather than a vague direction. So I would suggest I'd actually put a motion forward that we bring it back to the June 2021 council meeting.
Okay,
I would second that, Fiona.
thank you. So Mrs. Wilson, can you amend the motion then as it was printed to reflect that we would have this, that we are directing staff to do it, but not that they don't need to have it back to us till the June meeting of council? Is that the first meeting in June? Okay, the first meeting in June. So basically they want to get their report done by June 1st so that they can get it to us. We have a mover and a seconder for that. Would you like to read the motion then, please? I'm sorry, is there any further discussion?
Yeah.
Councillor Kravitz.
Just with this bylaw, I think, because we don't even know what boundaries we'd be setting with the 200 meters, if that's one of the things we're going to set. I think that's hard to determine, and it could let areas, it could have a negative effect on some rural agricultural areas where the hunting is permitted. So I don't think we should be jumping at this so quickly. So I agree to have some thought in it. And when the pandemic is hopefully over by next June, we can have a further discussion on this.
Right. Yeah, I would assume even thinking of like, I'm thinking of Sparta and Union and those, we shrank their dimensions when we did the official plan. They used to have a sort of an oval around them. And we took that right down to the actual boundary where the housing lots are. Certainly I would not want to see it within any of those boundaries, but how far we go beyond those boundaries, that will be the issue to discuss. Yes. Okay, go ahead, Diane, and read the motion, please.
The motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Kravitz, seconded by Councillor Roberts, that report CAO 1220 bylaw to regulate the discharge of firearms and archery be received, and further that council direct staff to proceed with the preparation of a bylaw to regulate the discharge of firearms and archery and bring it forward for council's consideration at the first meeting of council in June of 2021.
Thank you.
Question.
Yes, go ahead, Dennis.
I think I was more asking staff to bring it back to council for discussion, not to actually bring the bylaw or. We haven't had any discussion on this, so I don't know how we can ask staff to do that.
I would think if they have the preparation of what is in the bylaw, then we can amend it. So if otherwise we're just talking vaguely, like this, I think this will allow them to give us a proposal of what they think is appropriate, and then we can adjust it accordingly before it's passed. It wouldn't be passing the bylaw at that time, it'd be a discussion on the bylaw. At least that would be my understanding, would it not, Mr. Leach?
Madam Mayor, it could be done both ways. It could be just a simple deferral of the reports that are on the agenda today until the first meeting in June of 2021. And we pick up the discussion there, or staff could be asked to do a first draft, preliminary draft of a bylaw that could be brought forward in June of 2021 for council's consideration. It certainly doesn't have to include any kind of maps at that point. That's something that's more fine tuning and probably involves some discussion with the public. So it's whatever approach council wishes to make. Councillor Kravitz is the mover of the motion, so I guess it's whatever he, as the mover of the motion, wishes, along with the seconder.
Councillor Kravitz?
I was more thinking to defer this situation until further time. I believe something does have to be done eventually, but I don't think now is the time to be spending the extra time on preparing this bylaw. That's what I was suggesting. I was suggesting bringing a example bylaw to the table. I would just.
So you don't want a preliminary draft brought that we can actually base our discussion on? It's not going to have maps or any of that with it. It's just a preliminary draft.
So I could go with a preliminary draft of a bylaw, just so there would be public input, because as this Bang the Table had indicated, there's 80 to 90% of people that did the survey that aren't in favor of a bylaw or the time being spent on a bylaw at this particular time. So I'd prefer to see that rather than more of a formal bylaw being presented.
Right, but we are putting it off for a year, so it's just a preliminary bylaw in a year's time, if that's acceptable.
Bill Fair here.
Yes.
I would like to see some sort of a preliminary draft of a real proposed bylaw at that point. If we continue on with this, we're going to hit next June, and then it'll be open for discussion, and then it'll be moved again. I would like to see some sort of at least a preliminary draft of a proposed bylaw, so that we have something serious to discuss and amend at that point, if that's okay if Councillor Kravitz could agree to that.
Councillor Kravitz? Basically a preliminary draft.
I just don't want to tie up too much of staff's time on this when there's so many examples out there. We could take Middlesex Centers as an example and we'd have something in writing. It's not, I don't know. I think I don't feel as comfortable with this bylaw as perhaps other members of council are, just because of what the public's perception is of what they, or not perception, but what the public actually, when they did the bang the table survey, what they said. You know, we've got only 10% or less of the people that are in favor of it. We're here to represent more than 10% of the people. So that's my opinion. And we can put this bylaw there, this out as a full bylaw and vote on it like that. And I'd be willing to vote on it as a full bylaw, bring it out as a preliminary bylaw with a specific example for next June. And that's the motion I'll make, as it's a specific bylaw for June 1st, the first meeting in June. Yeah.
Bill Fair, one other comment.
Go ahead, Bill.
I know we keep on hearing that because staff can't do this or staff can't do that. You know, I think I don't think we should be making as many excuses for them. I haven't heard that much saying no, we don't want to do it because we're overworked. I would like to hear that, but if we are moving ahead and saying we're going to do a June preliminary bylaw, then I'm fine with that, and that we can discuss that point.
Okay. Go ahead.
Go ahead and read, Diane, the friendly amendment, and we'll see if that's what both the mover and seconder want.
Moved by Councillor Kravitz, seconded by Councillor Roberts, that report CO 1220, bylaw to regulate the discharge of firearms and archery, be received. And further, that council directs staff to proceed with the preparation of a preliminary draft bylaw to regulate the discharge of firearms and archery and bring it forward for council's consideration at the first meeting of June 2021.
Sure.
Is that all right with Councillor Kravitz? Yes. Councillor Roberts, is that acceptable to you?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead and call the vote then.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz?
No.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
Mayor Martin?
Yes.
The resolution carries.
Thank you. Moving on now to the ICS 1420, the Belmont pedestrian crossing. I guarantee Councillor Roberts will be celebrating this one. It's been a long time in the works. Questions and comments, please, on this particular one.
Fiona.
Yes, go ahead, Fiona.
Well, this is great news after our little episode we had yesterday. Seems Christmas has come twice to Belmont within a month, which is great. So announcement of our school and a much, much needed crosswalk. Having seen the report and where staff have recommended for the placement of the crosswalk, couldn't be in a better place. It takes in a bad traffic area that will slow down. Our seniors who reside on the east side of Belmont Road will now have a very safe way to get across for groceries, for the post office, or whatever it is that is required. I could not be happier. And thank staff for their diligence on this. Thank you on behalf of Belmont. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else have any comments or questions before I have Diane read the motion? Tom?
I'm delighted. It really struck home a couple of years ago when we were campaigning in Belmont, and you're there that twice a day at travel time, and it just divides the village. So much needed, you know, and I think this council, like we've got 3 new crosswalks in Port Stanley, the lights up there, some lanes widened, much safer. This coming to Belmont, I feel real good about it. So I think we've made some good decisions.
Yes, and we did put it in our budget to do, and we now have the report saying it's going to happen. So I would agree that it's certainly an excellent thing for Belmont.
one other quick thing, Mayor Martin, sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
Just wondering, so the secondary pedestrian crossing, which is proposed through our Trails Master Plan to go under the bridge in Belmont, there had been interest by one of our service groups previously that they wanted to partner with the municipality with that trail, or actually two groups. I know there was one looking at signage and another maybe looking for adding funds to it to maybe make it a little more than what has been suggested. I'm just wondering if that's still a possibility with it having come this far now, and if it is it just a matter that I can put that group in contact with, I would think, Mr. Brooks.
Mr. Brooks, would you like to respond to that? I know the Belmont Horticultural Club was the one who wanted to do the signs on the history of Belmont along the trail. I don't know the other group, but Mr. Brooks, if you'd like to respond to Councillor Roberts' question?
Sure, through you, Madam Mayor. I'd be happy to get in contact with that group and discuss options for any of their proposals that they would like to do along the pathway. So yeah, if Councillor Roberts could forward my information to them, I'd be happy to meet with them.
Thank you.
Thank you, I will do that.
I've got, through you, Mayor Martin, I've got one more thing I should add. This pedestrian crosswalk on Belmont Road is subject to County Council approval.
Yes.
That would go through County Council, I believe, in early August. So we'll have an answer for sure after County Council has considered it.
I'm sure Deputy Mayor Marks and myself will strongly support it, so hopefully it will go through County Council. Would you like to read the motion, please, Mrs. Wilson?
Madam Mayor, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Deputy Mayor Marks, that report ICS 1420 Belmont pedestrian crossing be received as information, and that Council approve the proposed pedestrian crossing as per the said report, and further that Council direct staff to seek approval from the County of Elgin to construct the pedestrian crossing.
To call the vote, please.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
That's a hard yes, thank you.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin?
Yes.
The resolution carries.
Thank you. Okay, now we're looking at traffic calming, the traffic calming report. There were a lot of things in this. There was actually a connection there to the original traffic calming bylaw that we have in Central Elgin and all the different resources that we have for traffic calming, and then some studies. So I'd like some comments and questions, et cetera, before we actually read the motion.
Bill Fair?
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Fair.
Yes, I noted that it didn't mention Centennial Ave in there. And I know this report was from 2018 where most of the study was done. Centennial Ave has changed drastically. The traffic volume is way higher than it was back then. We now have construction, we have a subdivision, we have all kinds of things going on, and we need to do some sort of traffic calming. I know I did have a meeting, I believe it was in February, with the police and Brian Lima and a group, and Deputy Mayor Marks was there also. We have to do something. We didn't seem to get too much success there. The police said that there weren't, I think there were only 2 accidents on Centennial, but at each end, at Elm and at Talbot, there are more accidents. But we've got people's pets are being killed. We've got people taking chances crossing the street because there's only sidewalk on one side. We have a tremendous volume. I know we suggested possibly a stoplight at Wellington and Centennial. Now that we're looking at a roundabout at Centennial and Elm, but I frankly do not care if the traffic is inconvenienced and slowed down, because we have to do something for safety. And again, we've got a large number of people that are really impacted by this tremendous volume of traffic. Something has to be done, rather than just say, hopefully they'll slow down. And we need to do more with signs, as the traffic calming recommended, but we have to do signs. We have to do all kinds of things. And we, of course, have to reinforce the law and say, there's no speeding. But we even have, that seems to be the emergency route for the OPP, and they're going through there at tremendous speeds. If anybody ever pulled out of a lane, there's no way they could stop. We've been fortunate so far, but there's got to be something that can control this traffic. The volume is terrible. The speeds are bad. And we are a direct route into St. Thomas now, in and out, and something has got to be done.
Thank you, Councillor Fair. That is a county road, and so we as Central Elgin can't do anything per se, but the only thing we could do as a council, if we wish to, is we could send a letter to the county saying that we as the municipal council endorse the fact that this is a concern, and that we would like to see some traffic calming measure of some sort put on that county road. And I don't see how we can do it any other way. But Deputy Mayor Marks, you wish to speak?
I have to agree wholeheartedly with Councillor Fair. And even if we just put Centennial aside, let's move over to Calder. I had 2 calls last week on that. And if they start the construction down at Elm and Centennial, we know people are going to be scooting over there. So it's a wide straight road, and they are going gangbusters. We're also getting a lot of calls over on McBain line. I commend Mr. Leach for bringing this forward to today. It's the bylaw itself is a bit complicated. It's right here for us now. It's a refresher. I think we're all getting lots and lots of complaints about speed. Whether it's go to Belmont, the grocery store, go to Port Stanley, I'm hearing it. Speed everywhere, and that's on Wellington, Highbury, etc. But it's here. I agree with Councillor Fair. That's the biggest complaint I get is speed and congestion. So I don't have the answers. I know staff are trained in this, so it's here. It's being discussed. I don't have the answers. Maybe it's some of all these things. One thing I have thought a lot about, we've had great success in Belmont and Port Stanley with our community policing. A lot of these incidents of people speeding are people who live in the neighborhood. Some of those neighbors, they can get the card, they can get the license number, they don't know where to go. I think if we had some community policing, maybe they'd have more trained observers, and that would help. It may be a combination of a lot of little things. I'm not saying put a speed bump up every 50 feet, but I have to agree with Councillor Fair. There's a lot of people concerned about speeding.
I would agree, and I know our traffic calming information that you have here, our policy, I like a lot of the things that they suggest. The problem I have always had is the assessment, because I've always felt very strongly that if someone is going 10 kilometers an hour over, if it's 80 and they're going 90, that's 1/8 of an increase. That's not a lot. If it's 40 and they're going 50, that's 25% increase in their speed. And to me, that makes it more dangerous in that sense. So I would like to have seen, and I know staff have told me this is the same scoring that many other municipalities use, but when I read it through, I find it almost impossible for a small road of ours to meet 35 points. They just can't get there. And I think even if we don't do it, I'd like to see some of these calming measures put in some of our streets where there are concerns and complaints. Yes, some people might be annoyed by it, but I would like to see, I like the signs in the middle of the road that the county have put on Carlo during this construction. They certainly remind me to slow down. and make sure that I'm doing the speed. And I notice that everybody else is too. I never get people passing or scooting by me at that point. And I'm sure Councillor Rowe can say that even with community policing in Port Stanley, it hasn't stopped a lot of the speeding, but it might help. I don't know. So the rest of you, comments, please.
Madam Mayor, it's Colleen.
Go ahead, Colleen.
So for the purpose of this particular agenda item, I believe it's only 7th Avenue where the traffic calming is required. And based on what I saw in the letter, I would tend to agree with that. I'm fortunately not as familiar with some of those other roads, so other councillors could jump in there. But to accept this report as information, I would be totally fine. Secondly, I would say that those small signs, those inexpensive, I would say, relatively speaking, signs that are in the middle of Carlow Road are a tremendous help. As small as they are, I understand they may have to come out in the wintertime, but they really do force people to slow down and provide those reminders as you go versus a static sign going into the subdivisions. I would also just like to ask for some similar analysis and a similar report for the other streets that have been mentioned. George Street, William Street was on there. I'm just not sure between Erie and Smith was maybe the best one. Edith Cavell, Curry Boulevard, and I had one other one. East Road, I guess, was the other one. I do realize that's a county road as well, and there's a lot of work going on up there. And Main Street actually had a comment as well. So if there's a way to kind of do some of these reports on a regular basis, I think that would be fantastic.
Mr. Brooks, would you like to respond to that?
Through you, Madam Mayor. If that's council's request, we can, typically the way the traffic calming policy works would be that someone in the neighborhood who has a concern regarding speeds would make a request to me in order to put the process of considering traffic calming devices in place. So we would take that request and measure the speeds and make sure that it meets the warrants set out through the traffic calming policy. But if council would like to request staff to go ahead and measure those roads that Councillor Rowe has requested, we can do that here over the next 4 to 5 weeks.
Mr. Leach?
Madam Mayor, the other significant component to the traffic calming policy is the petition that there needs to be a petition submitted that shows that there's support from the neighborhood or the affected neighborhood for the traffic calming. And that's really to protect council from 1 or 2 people complaining and the other 90 people don't want traffic calming. And then you get yourself, council gets caught between the two. So it's to try to show or demonstrate that there's support for the neighborhood for the traffic calming as well. So that's an important component along with the other technical aspects.
That's a fire alarm, and we are now going to have to vacate the building. Sorry, we'll resume when we go out to the back, is it? Here or out front? Here. Council chamber should go front, I believe.
Sure.
I would assume.
Their alarm goes off.
You can't techie this one, can ya?
There's no fire at my place.
I'm good. Although I did smell burning here, but I realized it's the rice pudding I'm making in the slow cooker, so I should maybe be a little concerned.
I'm going to turn off for a bit here. This is too irritating.
Yeah, I mean, I got good hard rain yesterday at my house. Quite a bit, good hard.
We didn't. It just blew through really quick. How'd you get them out?
Rained all morning and then
How'd you get them out?
my
I
house.
didn't. You got stuff on here.
But the storm,
Get her down.
Oh,
it was, like, I'd never seen anything like it. It literally took a peach tree in our orchard. It broke it off at the ground and lifted it and carried it right over several other trees, like big apple trees and stuff, and deposited it at least 30, 40 feet away. I was, because when the wind started, it was coming out of the northwest,
That's what.
but this tree got moved straight north. So it was an interesting experience,
Thank you.
certain. Okay, gotta get back into my iPad.
what'd you do?
Okay. Everyone else got to remain on. Just us that had to.
That's what I mean. Nobody else had to leave, right?
No, that's what I heard Bill say. There's no fire at my house. We're all back then, are we live then? Okay. We were in the middle of discussing speeding and calming policy, so I don't know where we were when we ended it. Was there anyone specific who was speaking or wants to jump back in on this traffic calming?
Bill Fair.
Go ahead, Bill.
At our meeting in February, they said that I asked why Centennial is so much narrower than Coulter, and Mr. Lima said that that was to calm traffic. In fact, all it does is make it much more dangerous. And I was going to say this would be quite radical, but there aren't any no parking signs. I mean, if the people on Centennial Ave started parking, I mean, the whole street would be closed. But we just have to do something that, and it's just not acceptable the way it is right now.
Councillor Kravitz.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks, I believe you mentioned that petition is probably the best way to do this. So if people could perhaps sign a petition, I don't know if we're able to do the traffic study on Centennial or the county roads. Jeff, if you could maybe enlighten us on this, and then we could ask people to get petitions if they want it done in their area.
Through you, Mayor Martin, I believe that residents can make a request through the County of Elgin, through the county engineer, to have the speeds monitored. The county does have traffic counters similar to what we have, and they may be willing to measure the speeds themselves, since they'd be the ones that would be administering any of these traffic calming policies.
Mr. Leach.
Council could, I would imagine, also make that request, Madam Mayor, that if council wished the county to study the speeds on Centennial Avenue, that request could be done by council as well. The other point, and I may ask Mr. Brooks to speak to, was the comment about construction, and if a roundabout is constructed at Centennial and Elm, traffic diverting the area. And because that was something that came up at our staff meeting this morning, that could be something that would trigger temporary traffic calming. So, Madam Mayor, if Mr. Brooks could speak to that.
Go ahead, Mr. Brooks.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, that issue was discussed. The county's looking at possibly constructing a roundabout at the corner of Elm and Centennial, maybe as early as next year. If that construction project does go forward, one of the results that we may see as part of the construction is a lot of cut through traffic that was heading south or eastbound on Elm, cutting through the Coulter Ave area and exiting out through either Lawton or Bodkin. We would look at that and possibly propose that some traffic calming measures temporarily be put in place for the duration of the construction of that roundabout, as I'm sure we would likely see some increased speeds, increased traffic on Coulter Ave during the construction.
Thank you. The one other one that I would just note here is that the William Street, when you did the study of William, it is 34 and it only needs to be 35 to warrant to pass in our thing. So I just, like, it seems very, very close. It's obviously a concern.
If you take a look at the evaluation criteria, a lot of it has to do with pedestrian generators, the number, the traffic counts, as well as accidents. So the number of accidents on William, as well as the pedestrian generators, are what elevated the score on William as.
Mayor Martin?
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Rowe.
Yes, so I was looking through the traffic policy. I guess I haven't been able to find it, but what constitutes a petition? How many names are required?
Mr. Leach?
I think it's section 3.1.
Section 3.1, he believes.
Okay. And while I'm looking for that, just a question, how much are those signs that go in the middle of the road on the solid or dotted lines? And if they are inexpensive, is it really difficult or out of the question to actually put them on municipal roads now? Like if William Street is one point away from getting traffic calming measures implemented, I think that would be a really simple solution to make, and then the issue might go away. I also do agree though with Mayor Martin when she says if 10 kilometers over the speed limit at 80, it is significantly different if that 10 kilometers is over a 40 kilometer an hour zone. So I'm not sure using sort of a flat amount is really the solution. So I don't know if those changes should really be made in the bylaw. I understand that it's what other places use, but I do think there are some improvements that could be made.
Mr. Leach?
Madam Mayor, in terms of the question about the petition, the petition must be signed by 51% of the households within the target area as determined by staff.
So if it was Curry Boulevard and there are only about 8 houses, you need half of them, a little over half. I don't know how many there are, but Curry doesn't have a lot, but.
It would be, and maybe Mr. Brooks can better speak to it, but it would be the targeted area. So determining what users were, so in the case
So
of Curry
everyone
Boulevard,
down in that area, yeah.
There may only be 8 houses on Curry Boulevard, just to pick a number, but there's hundreds of houses that use that stretch of road. So that's a technical question that technical staff might be able to answer.
Mr. Brooks, how many would you need then if I'm just giving an example of Curry Boulevard because we've had lots of complaints about it over the years. So would it have to be the whole of Orchard Beach? 51% of the whole of Orchard Beach that agree that it's necessary?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the way it would work, it would rely on those individuals who reside within that segment of road. So it wouldn't necessarily include all that through traffic that would go through Curry Boulevard to enter a different section of street.
So it would be like every house that faces onto Curry Boulevard.
That's good.
Thank you. Mr. Marks, Deputy Mayor Marks.
I'm thinking of, we haven't mentioned McBain Line, and I get many calls on that. And I'm thinking that a lot of the people that are complaining about McBain Line may actually not live on it, but they're coming further back in the subdivision. So I'm a little, this petition, if someone down on Watson Ave or Crescent or wherever, if they have a complaint about McBain Line, does that count or not? I'm kind of lost there.
I would assume they can sign the petition, but you would need what he's saying is 51% of the people on McBain Line need to also sign it.
Through you, Mayor Martin, it would only be, it would be restricted to those individuals who live on McBain Line. So someone out on Watson wouldn't be eligible or sign it for that matter because they're not on this.
I think it's important that we as council understand all these things because we do get a lot of calls about speeding. And this way we can encourage them to, to get a petition, but they need 51% of the people on the street to agree. And that's going to be hard. Yeah, that's not going to be easy, but some of them feel very strongly and they may very well go out and try to get 51% of the people. Other questions or comments? I like Councillor Rowe's idea. I'd like to see something done on William because one thing that does slow me down certainly is the bump out that we have just south of Smith Street there. That slows me right down because it does become very narrow at that point. At least it feels very narrow at that point.
Madam,
Go ahead.
just
Mr.
to
Brooks.
follow up with that request, we did measure the speeds on William, and we measured 85th percentile of speeder of traffic traveling at 42 kilometers per hour when the posted speed is 50.
Yeah, the one thing I've told you this before, I'm just reiterating it before council, 85% are going 42. How fast are the other 15% going? That is always my concern, because it only takes 2 or 3 people going very, very fast to cause serious accidents or concerns or injuries. So that's always my concern. There are some that will just ignore the rules no matter what and do exceeding speed. I know we've had problems on Main with them. They're drag racing on Main Street. And there've been a lot of concerns about that of recent times. So I don't know. Anyway, other comments from other people? Questions?
Bill Fair.
Go ahead, Bill.
The only thing I think we should add in there, for Centennial, it's volume. It's not just speed, it's volume. And just as we just did the crosswalk in Belmont, sure there's speed, but there's also volume. So I think we have to address the volume somehow.
Exactly, yeah. Would it be council's will do we want to send a letter to the county recommending that they do a traffic count, et cetera, and look at traffic calming measures on Centennial?
Bill Fair?
Yes.
I would say yes, and I will be talking to a lot of people along Centennial, and I'm sure that we'll go for try and get the 51% on Centennial, because it's something definitely has to be done.
Okay, now 51% is our policy. We don't know the county doesn't have a policy like that. So just us sending a letter or having as many of them as want to contact the engineer might be helpful. I don't know, but they don't have a specific policy for 51%. Okay,
then I would agree we should do a letter.
Councillor Kravitz and then Mr. Leach.
Just another question about our policy. No road greater than 50 kilometers per hour is used in the traffic calming study. What is the speed limit on Centennial?
50.
It is 50. Okay, so it is eligible. Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you.
Yep, it was changed. Yes, Mr. Leach.
Madam Mayor, just to clarify too with council, when I speak of the petition being 51%, that's in addition to meeting the technical requirements that are in council's policy as well. So it's not just getting 51% of the residents, it's also meeting the technical requirements that are spelled out in the policy.
Now, Mr. Leach, just one question I have. Can council overrule its own policy and decide to put, like with William being so close, can we overrule and say we're going to put traffic calming measures in that area, even though it's only close? 34 out of not 35? I don't know.
I guess the technical answer is council can always deviate from its policy. What I might be more inclined to say is if you're going to start deviating from the policy numerous times, then look at the policy first,
yep,
rather than keep making exceptions to the policy. If council wants to consider something like those center line signage, then infrastructure and community services staff can put together a cost estimate of what that does cost. That is one of the traffic calming measures identified in council's policy, and I think it suggests that it will decrease the speed by about 5 kilometers an hour, at least according to the information in the policy. But there is a cost to those signs in terms of the actual signs and the installation and the taking down of those signs on an annual basis. But that's council's desire. It can be looked at as well.
Mayor Martin.
I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor Marks and then Councillor Rowe.
I'd just like to thank staff for bringing this through, because this policy started at the previous council and I thought I knew a little bit about it. I didn't. I know a fair bit more now. The fact that the public has an opportunity to see this, it's around hopefully we can all educate ourselves a little bit more. I do appreciate staff. They're the trained professionals. They're the ones with the data. I certainly don't. I got a pretty good idea from walking along the road whether the car's going fast or not, but that's just an opinion. So I think it would behoove us all to read that policy a couple of times, and I think we can all learn from it. Then we can make the decision whether we want to modify it or not. But I'm glad we've had this discussion today.
Go ahead, Councillor Rowe.
I was just going to say, if the option is out there, I would like to move to investigate the option of putting in those centerline signs on a few select streets, even if it's in, you know, certain areas that warrant it or on a seasonal basis. I think it's a simple thing to do. So I don't know if I need to include that in this particular motion or not, but on the other hand, I would encourage the agenda item as is to put the traffic calming measures on 7th Avenue. And then I will work to get the petitions going with people where they are interested in, so that we can look at the other roads that have come up in the past.
I would assume we need to know how many roads before we would ask staff to check on the costs of those center line, if we were going to ask them, or maybe they could just tell us what they cost per unit, what the work would be, Mr. Leach, I don't know, or Mr. Brooks. If we knew what it would cost per unit and how far apart you would put them on a road, if we were going to put them in, that would probably give us an idea if we can afford any, or whether we put it in the budget next year, or what happens. Mr. Brooks?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I can work on a cost per installation. So an installation being one set of the centerline posts, as well as a post on either side of the road with the required signage. And then we can use that to estimate costs per segment of road.
Okay, that would be very helpful, thank you, and we will bring that back at another time. What is the motion? Do we have a motion yet or not?
Madam Mayor, the motion that staff prepared was as per the report, or that council was on their agenda, is to receive. My understanding was to receive the report as information. I mean, the subsequent discussion that's been taking place is led me to believe that you're wanting something sent to the County of Elgin engineer with respect to Centennial Avenue. So I have prepared that draft.
Okay.
But neither one is on the table at the present time.
No, and you mentioned, Councillor Rowe, that you wanted the one for 7th Ave supported, which is in the recommendation, I believe.
Well, if that's what the study shows and it clearly warrants the work, I'm not sure that I would see why it wouldn't or shouldn't be done.
Mr. Brooks? I'm sorry, Fiona, go ahead.
Agreed. That area has been a problem for many years, and as the report had suggested, just with how it's built up in the last couple of years has increased the issues within that road. So I do feel it's something that should be looked at sooner than later.
Mr. Brooks?
Through you, Madam Mayor, just to clarify, on 7th Ave, we did see some speeding issues. We aren't proposing any traffic calming per se, as far as traffic calming devices. What we're looking at doing is moving the 50 km/h begin zone further west to encourage motorists to slow down before they get into the built up area along at Snyder's Ave and Kettle Creek. And if council agrees with that, we would bylaw to set out a speed zone.
We're having a hard time hearing you, Mr. Brooks. That's better, thank you.
Sorry. What I was going to say was we aren't proposing any traffic calming measures per se on 7th Ave. What we're looking at doing is moving the 50-kilometer-an-hour zone further west to encourage motorists to slow down before they get into the built-up areas at Snyder's Ave and Kettle Creek Drive. So if council's supportive of that, we will bring up bylaw forth at the next council meeting to adjust that speed.
Bill Fair here.
Go ahead, Mr. Fair.
I just wanted to add, I noted that Mrs. Wilson has mentioned Centennial Ave. We should add McBain Line to that. We have discussed about that one too. So I think we should include McBain Line in that resolution.
That's not a county road.
That's not a county road.
Okay, sorry, I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
Yes,
Centennial
yes.
is a county road, so we would have to petition the county about that one or ask them to look into it. McBain would be one we would have to do ourselves.
Okay, sorry, I misunderstood that.
Mayor Martin?
Yes, go ahead, Councilor Rowe.
Just a question on the 7th Avenue survey, I guess, then. So there was a petition from 51% or greater of the residents on that road, is that correct?
Is that correct, Mr. Brooks?
You, Mayor Martin, no, there wasn't a request. There hasn't been we haven't received a petition on any of the requests yet. All we've received from residents is a request to run it through the criteria. And we haven't found a road yet that meets the criteria where a petition would be considered.
So I guess I'm a little confused then. What comes first? Do you need the petition in order to do what's in this particular report or not?
So, sorry. So what would take place is, for instance, a resident on Kettle Creek Drive gave me a call and made a request that we look at Kettle Creek Drive, and they made a request to put the policy in motion. So what we do from there is we go out and we measure the speeds. We look at all the criteria, and if the speeds and all the different criteria warrant traffic calming devices, I would reply back to them, say it's Kettle Creek Drive has met the criteria. It's now, you need to take it upon yourself now to go petition the neighborhood. And if 51% of the neighborhood agree that they would like traffic calming in place, then we would go through the steps to.
Okay, so they're petitioning with specific information that you would be able to give them to show to their neighbors.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
One thing I noted here, the speeding certainly on 7th Ave, with it 50 kilometers an hour. In one section, they're doing almost 80. And in the other section, they're doing about 65. So putting in lower speed limit signs further west, I'm assuming, you think that's going to slow them down if they're not slowing down now?
Through your Mayor Martin, I would suggest that it would slow some of the speed down, especially at Schneider's Ave where you're seeing it quite high. In maybe with some enforcement there, I think we're going to see lower speeds.
Fiona?
Yes, go ahead, Fiona. Your report, by the way, Jeff says the reverse. The fast speeding's at Kettle Creek Drive. Go ahead, Fiona.
Just for some context on 7th Ave. So 7th Ave is outside of the Belmont Meadows subdivision, so feeds from London to Belmont. The issue with it, and this has been a couple of years for me now, so there's been residents who have been there for years, as well as that's our new built up area with Craig Home development. And so what the issue has been is that where it is now built up, there wasn't homes before. So the posted speed through that area was 80. But now we have traffic feeding off of Snyder onto Belmont Road and vice versa 7th Ave on back onto Snyder. So the problem is that in that area now where it's now built up and use that Snyder's is used daily, the speed's at 80. So we haven't given vehicles the opportunity to slow down. So having brought it to staff's attention, that's where this decision that because that's now a built up area, the lower to 50 should now be moved further down so that anybody traveling east, either to go into the subdivision or directly to Belmont Road, is now traveling at 50 through that built up area, as well as those people going west, leaving Belmont, heading to London, that they're not hitting 80 during that built up area. They're well without that, outside of that built up area before they pick up their speed. So that's just for some context on where this has come from. Again, it's been the issue even before the area was built up. Now that it's just become more of an issue, having traffic now coming out onto 7th Avenue with people doing those speeds, that 80 kilometers an hour. So if that helps for the rest of council as to where this came from and why it's been brought forward.
And
Councillor Kravitz?
and I believe Jeff's suggestion of moving the 50 kilometer zone half a kilometer to the west will give people a greater chance to slow down in time. So I agree with Jeff's suggestion.
I agree. I see that too. My concern was when I saw it at Kettle Creek Drive, which is closer to Belmont Road than Snyder's Ave, they're even going faster. So are they going out of town at that point with that speed or coming in? That was why I made the comment. Yeah. No, I agree with changing the speed limit, very definitely. Any other comments about this report? Do we want to have Diane, she has drafted a request to the county. Maybe Diane, you could read what that is, or have we got the other one we need to vote on first?
Procedurally, whatever you, I mean, if you're going to just receive the traffic calming as information, I have that motion prepared.
Okay. And then the other one was concerning Centennial. Is that your desire of council to just receive the report as prepared and then to do a second motion concerning Centennial Ave?
Mayor Martin?
Yes, Councillor Rowe.
So just a question. So if you receive the agenda item as information, does that mean that sign is going to be moved as part of that accepting of information? And if so, yes, then I agree with what you just said.
Mr. Brooks, I'm assuming that's what it means, that if we accept your report and just that we accept it, you are going to be moving the traffic speed limit sign west on 7th.
Yes, well, if council receives a report, we will prepare a bylaw to amend the speed zone on 7th Ave, and that'll come forth at the next council meeting.
Thank you.
Possible.
Any other comments? If not, Diane, could you read that motion about receiving?
Motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Deputy Mayor Marks, seconded by Councillor Roberts, that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Central Elgin receive report ICS 1520, traffic calming as information.
Call the vote, please.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
Mayor Martin?
Yes.
The resolution carries.
Now we need a mover and a seconder would you like to read the motion and then we'll get a mover and a seconder just so that they know exactly what they're moving or seconding?
So the draft motion reads that due to ongoing speeding concerns on Centennial Avenue in Central Elgin, council respectfully requests that the county engineer to perform speed and traffic counts on that road which is under county jurisdiction. And further, that council requests the county engineer review implementing traffic calming measures on Centennial Avenue.
I would, Bill Fair.
Yes.
I would move that. I would just ask that you would put volume and speed in the first part of that resolution.
I did indicate speed and traffic counts. Would traffic counts, maybe that's technically not the word, would we prefer volume then? Volume counts instead of traffic counts?
Yes, please.
Okay, that might make it clearer.
Fiona, I would second that. And just armadillos do both. That will be capturing it. They capture speed, they capture volume, they capture the type of vehicle. So all of that will be encompassed.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Marks.
I was going to second, so I'll third it, but I think just a suggestion, because the residents out there, maybe a suggestion also enforcement. If they see cars and if they can identify them, simple phone call to the OPP, increase the enforcement. That's also a good idea because it's going to be a combination of things, not just one thing to make it happen.
And it better not be people living in that area, Bill.
Right.
I know some of my people drive fast.
We've heard the motion, and Diane did amend it instead of saying traffic count to volume count. So go ahead and call the vote.
Okay. Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin.
Yes.
The resolution carries.
Okay, now we're on to ICS 1720, Harrison Place Culvert Tender. Mr. Brooks, do you want to say anything before we read the motion?
Muted.
Are you muted, Mr. Brooks? We're not hearing anything.
Apologies, I should know better by now. Anyway, I'll give a brief history on the project. So back in 2016, some slope failures were identified through the bridge inspection reports. At that time, GHD was engaged to provide consulting services to design new retaining walls at the inlet and outlets of the large diameter culvert. During the design phase, it was suggested that a liner and an extension be utilized to extend that culvert and line it. That would accomplish two things. That would lessen the need for retaining walls, and it would extend the life of the culvert. GHD's initial quote to the municipality was around $200,000 to accomplish that. Further along in the design in early 2020, they updated their estimate to be roughly $475,000 in staff looked at that estimate, considered that the benefits of the liner and the extension of the culvert were worth that money. So we went out and tendered for the work to do it. The prices that we see coming in after tendering are around $950,000. So what we're suggesting to council is that we step back, take another look at this whole project.
You're cutting out again.
So what staff is suggesting is that we engage the services of another consulting engineer just to review the scope of the project and the cost of it, and have a look at and see which direction we want to go. We may take a step back and want to look at going back to just building retaining walls rather than lining and extending that culvert.
Thank you. Any questions from council members? Now, would you read the motion, Mrs. Wilson?
Motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Deputy Mayor Marks, seconded by Councillor Roberts, that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Central Elgin reject the low bid from JR Excavating Limited for the Harrison Place Culvert Relining Project, and further that Council direct staff to seek an opinion from another consultant on the direction of the project as per report ICS 1720 Harrison Place Culvert Tender.
Would you call the vote, please?
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin.
Yes.
The resolution carries.
Thank you. Now ICS 1820 Highview Drive and Lawton Street connection. I think the report gives you a very clear background on the history and why we're not recommending this, because it certainly would turn Lawton into a speedway as well, being a straight road through. Mr. Brooks, is there anything else you want to add from what was in the report?
I have nothing to add.
Anyone have any questions on this?
Bill Fair,
Go ahead, Bill.
just a comment. I agree 100%. We don't need more traffic volume.
Thank you. Do you read the motion, please?
Madam Mayor, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Fair, seconded by Councillor Roberts, that report ICS 1820 Highview Drive and Lawton Street connection be received as information, and that council advise that it does not approve a connection between Highview Drive and Lawton Street, and further that a copy of said resolution be forwarded to the City of St. Thomas.
Thank you. Call the vote.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz,
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Resolution carries.
Thank you. And ICS 1920 Elm Line and Centennial Road sanitary sewer extension. Do you wish to speak to this, Mr. Brooks?
Through you, Madam Mayor, this report is just considering extending the sanitary sewers on Elm and Centennial far enough south as well as far enough east to get outside of the construction limits of the intersection improvements being undertaken by the County of Elgin. At this point, we would just express interest in doing so, and we would take a further look into it, and I would report back with some actual costs to do so at a later date.
It's just so that these properties, because we wouldn't have to then tear up the newly constructed road if these areas needed sewage lines. So any questions for Mr. Brooks on this?
Bill Fair.
Go ahead, Bill.
I've had inquiries about the sewer, and I'm glad that this is being considered. I also have a meeting tomorrow night with someone in the area in regards to the traffic circle, but I did have inquiries saying that they were concerned that the traffic circle would go in and then be torn up down the road for sewer. So I think this is a good idea.
Thank you. Would you
Mayor
read
Martin?
Yes, go ahead, Colleen.
Just the opportunity is there, I guess, while the road is being worked on from the county's perspective. I just wouldn't expect any of the sewer work, if that was to actually happen in 2020. I don't know if that's the case because it's not built into the budget, or if it did have to happen in 2020, I would be curious as to which other project would not be taking place in order to be able to stay within our budget, if at all possible.
Mr. Brooks, do you want to respond? I'm sure we're not intending to do it, just make it so it's possible.
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, this construction would take place in coordination with the intersection improvements, and that construction isn't expected until at least 2021. So this would be incorporated into a 2021 budget.
Thank you. Any other questions? Now, would you read the motion, please?
Motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Deputy Mayor Marks, that report ICS 1920 Elm Line and Centennial Road sanitary sewer extension be received as information, and that council express interest in extending the sanitary sewers from the intersection of Elm Line and Centennial Road south and east of the intersection beyond the limits of the intersection improvement project being undertaken by the County of Elgin, and further that staff be directed to prepare a report outlining the costs to council prior to incorporating anything into the construction project.
Call the vote, please.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin.
Yes.
The resolution carries.
Thank you. Now we're going to the Director of Finances report. So DFS 2020, tenders for the rehabilitation of the Southdale Line Bridge. Any comment? Mrs. Nordeman?
I guess, as you saw in one of the previous reports, tenders are coming in over what we had budgeted and the amounts that we were estimating when these estimates were produced. So you'll see that the tender overall is 10.2% over budget.
Mr. Brooks, do you have anything you want to add to the report?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I would just to inform council that that price that you see in front of you does include $100,000 worth of contingency fees, as well as roughly $40,000 in potential work, depending on what the contractor finds. So we may very well be under budget when the project is all said and done.
Thank you. Any questions from any members of council?
Mayor Martin, it's Colleen.
Colleen, and then Deputy Mayor Marks, and then Councillor Kravitz.
Yeah, just as assuming that the work doesn't come in under budget, are there any thoughts as to where the additional funding would come from, since the 2020 budget was only $880?
Mr. Brooks?
Through you, Madam Mayor, this might be a question more appropriate for Ms. Waterman, but council did just reject the Harrison Place culvert tender. So we had roughly $500,000 in that budget. So there may be an opportunity to borrow some money out of that budget to help fund this one.
Thank you. Mrs. Nordeman, do you wish to speak to this?
I would say in normal circumstances, it would come out of our rate stabilization reserve, any overages that we had through the year. However, in the situation that we're in with COVID, our budget is not what we would have expected anyway. I think that using the funds from Harrison Place Culvert is the best approach.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Marks, then Councillor Kravitz.
Just the fact that we're over budget or projected over budget is a fact of COVID, I believe. We saw that with the fire station. It may happen for a while yet. There's so much uncertainty, but I think, you know, the next two level governments above us may be looking ahead. There may be some stimulus money coming next year's budget. We may offset some of this, luck out on some grants, who knows, but I think we still have to do business. The road or the bridge needs fixing and has to be done. So I support it. You don't have to like it, but still support it.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, or I'm sorry, Councillor Kravitz.
Just with this tender, I think that with our council doing our budget late in the year, I think this is an issue, and this tender was only put out about a month ago. And I'm wondering if the numbers are higher because it's a shorter time frame. That'd be one of my concerns. It is going to put us 100,000 over on this item alone. And there's also another 100,000 for the straightening of the creek at this location in conjunction with this bridge reconstruction. Now, currently there's 7 residences and 1 business to the east of the bridge within our municipality. And I'm assuming, I don't know what the weight limits are. I thought fire alarm, and there is.
Fire alarm again, so I'm afraid we have to vacate the chambers. We will be back.
So Fiona, would you please take the rice off the pot, out of the pot?
My rice pudding is safe, Bill. It's okay. It's definitely not me causing it.
We hadn't.
We are back.
We're back. Okay, we're all back. Sorry, yes. Oh, and Councillor Kravitz isn't back yet. We'll give Councillor Kravitz a moment to get here and then we will begin again. Here he is. So, looking at the rehabilitation of the Southdale Line Bridge and whether there was explanations about it being a bit over 10% over, but that Mr. Brooks felt that it might not even be over before we were finished. So because of the contingency amount in there. Any further questions on this one? Deputy, or I'm sorry, yes, it was your turn to speak when we went out. Councillor Kravitz.
So fire alarm is now over.
Yes.
The question I have, through you to Jeff, Mr. Brooks, is what is the weight limit currently on that bridge? And the second question that I have, do we have a mutual aid agreement with Malahide to service the people for fire emergencies on the east side of the bridge?
Through you, Mayor Martin, I don't have the load posting in front of me. I'm looking to find a document here, but I haven't been able to pull it up on time. I do have a letter from the engineer suggesting that if we aren't able to complete the work this year in 2020, that we would have to further post that bridge for load restriction, which would reroute, I believe there's a school bus that travels over that bridge right now, and it would further, I believe that the ambulance would be able to access that bridge as well. So
I'm sorry, could you repeat that last, you cut out there at the end?
If we aren't able to complete the work this year, school buses and ambulances would have to take an alternate route rather than cross the bridge there. So we would have to further post that bridge if it's not able to be completed in 2020.
Okay, with the 911 call, do you know if there's a routing given for that? Like, does our Yarmouth Center Fire Station realize that the bridge is low capacity and has to go around by Orwell? Or is that just the fire department's call at the time?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I can't speak for the fire department. I'm not sure what their level, where their routes take them through that area.
Because that would be my concern. For being 10% over, that's roughly, I forget what it was in the report, $90,000. It's a little big hit for this time. And it was something we had discussed at budget time to possibly delay the spending of the 800,000 at this location. And there was even suggest that we could possibly still do the creek straightening this year. So I don't know. My concern is what the weight restriction would be put at on that bridge. I don't know if that can't be answered right now, so I don't know where to go with this.
One other comment that I would have is the buses, the people on the east side of the creek go to New Sarum Public School, and the people on the west side, I believe, go down now to the Kettle Creek Public School. So I'm not certain a bus would cross that bridge. They may, but I'm not certain why they would, just because that creek is the dividing line between the schools.
Mayor Martin?
Yes, Councillor Rowe.
Just to the weight question that Councillor Kravitz had, in the letter it says 8, 12, and 18. Not sure I know what that means, but is that the current weight restriction or the desired weight restriction?
Mr. Brooks, can you answer that? It does say 8/12/18 tons.
All right, I'm trying to find what you're looking at here.
And
just below the chart in your report, the first chart.
And with that, I also noticed a Google Earth posting that shows it as a three ton weight limit. See if I can pull that up. Oh, yeah, no, I apologize. It is, the photo does show 8 for a single axle, 12 and 18. That's the maximum posting currently in the photo.
Okay, so 8 is for a single axle? What would 12 be then?
That's a tandem axle, and 18 would be a triaxle.
Okay.
So that is the current posting.
What would you have to reduce it to, Mr. Brooks, if we didn't repair it at this time?
For you, Madam Mayor, that's what I'm trying to find here through my files.
Okay, we can come back to that. Questions or concerns, other comments about the Southdale Line Bridge?
Mayor Martin?
Yes, Councillor Rowe.
I would just rather spend the $90,000 excess on one small road here in Ward 1 that people are or have been concerned about for a long time. So I guess my point just is that there are other ways to spend $100,000 or $90,000. And I have driven over that bridge, and it's I would say not used all that much, but I do fully understand that it's on a paved semi-minor road. I don't know what you call it.
On what should we do with if Jeff? Go ahead, Mr. Perrin.
Through you, Madam Mayor, as Director of Asset Management, I would have to caution council to look at things as far as levels of service when it comes to your assets and usability. So realizing that the opinion might be that $90,000 could be used on another road, don't disagree. However, a structure is a different animal than a road. So even if you have a now need road, you can still use the road. If you have a bridge that cannot be used due to posting, then it can't be used, and it requires you to undertake an environmental assessment to actually close the road. So while it might appear that the bridge is in great shape or is not used that much, if you end up posting it to a point where it can't be used anymore, then it has no serviceability as opposed to that road that might have a few potholes on it that we can keep together. So from an asset management standpoint, council would need to make the conscious decision just to close the bridge and go through the environmental assessment and get rid of that asset.
Mayor Martin?
Yes.
Just to that point, so what is, out of curiosity, what is the minimum weight allowance for this or any bridge? Is there such a thing?
Well, a passenger vehicle you would not, if you lowered this to 3 tons, then that's the last posting you can have. Then you're going to have to close the bridge. And at that weight, you're going to compromise even an ambulance getting across the bridge.
And there's nothing in between the 8, 12, 18 to the 3. It's just
No.
either or.
No.
Any other questions or concerns? Deputy Mayor Marks.
I'm in favor of fixing the bridge. You know, where we spend the money, all places across the municipality. Sometimes it's a lot of money for a very select few, but this is a team game, and that area obviously hasn't had a lot of money spent on a long time, but I think we have to maintain it. I don't like the price, but I'm in favor of moving ahead.
Okay.
Hi, this is Karen.
Yes, Karen.
Hi. In light of all the information, and especially the concern that an ambulance might have an issue getting over the bridge in order to save somebody's life, I think that we really do need to look into fixing this bridge. It is a bit of a cost, but yeah, I think that safety is probably the number one thing, and I would agree to move forward at looking at maybe fixing this bridge.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Fiona,
Go ahead, Fiona.
sorry, I just want to say that, yes, I very much agree with Deputy Mayor Marks and Councillor Cook that hearing the information that again, the cost is a bit much, but that it's a job that needs to be done.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments? Go ahead, Councillor Kravitz.
I do agree with the safety issue. As I was just trying to defer this until a later date, as we discussed in budget. It's quite a big number, and it's something that I don't know where we're going to get extra funds at the end of this year. So I'll have to agree with it for safety reasons, but that's just in the back of my mind. I was hoping that we could possibly delay it, thinking that the tenders came in at a higher price since it was a short-term tender.
Okay, and Mr. Brooks, I believe you wish to speak.
I found the information. If the work isn't completed in 2020, RJ Burnside is suggesting that we reduce the posted load limit to a single posting of 5 tons.
So 5 tons, no matter what style of vehicle.
Correct.
Thank you. Is there anything more that we need to discuss on this? If not, would you read the motion, please, Diane?
Madam Mayor, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Fair, that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Central Elgin accept the tender of Clearwater Structures, Inc. for the 2020-15 rehabilitation of Bridge B416 St. Thomas in the amount of $88,241 plus all applicable taxes as per report DFS 2020, request for tenders 2020-15 rehabilitation of Bridge B416 St. Thomas.
Thank you. Call the motion, please.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Thank you. DFS 2120, update of the water wastewater rate study. Mr. Leach, do you want to speak to this before we have a motion, or?
I can, yes.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, and I invite the Director of Finance to jump in too as well. Staff did take a look at the rates. We were tasked with trying to determine whether there was any flexibility at all in the rates and the actual revenue and expenditures to see if there might be an opportunity to either reduce the rates or freeze the rates for a longer time period. As Council may recall, the rates were frozen. The increase for 2020 did not happen as originally proposed. When staff took a more detailed look at the rates, particularly Ms. Nordeman, what we saw wasn't good in terms of the capacity to doing that. In fact, there was 1 or 2 items in the operating area which were not expenditures, which were not reflected in the last rate study that was done in 2018. Staff also did meet with the authors of the report, Watson and Associates. As a result, what staff believe is the best way to go forward is to just update the rate study itself. Included in the proposal that we have received from Watson's is 1 public meeting, but they're also looking at some initial public engagement. I think part of that public engagement is hearing some of the comments, is to explain the heavily regulated area that water systems and wastewater systems operate within, to go over the history of the water system over the last 20 years. In many cases, people are paying still through debt charges and rates for much of the upgrading of the system that's happened over the last 20 years. That a great deal of the system in all 3 former municipalities have been upgraded. Debt was incurred to do that in accordance with plans, but that debt still has to be paid off. So staff is recommending that a rate study looking at us, maybe looking at strategically how we manage those rates to move forward, engage the public in that process to the extent council wishes and however possible, so that council understands the situation the municipality is in respecting those rates. So the Watson proposal does reflect that that strategy.
Questions and comments?
Mayor Martin?
Go ahead, Councillor Rowe.
Yes, thank you. Just a question. Is the intent to have a brand new 10-year study done, or is it just to update the current study that ends in 2027?
Mr. Leach?
Madam Mayor, the intent is to update the study. That's what it's being called. But effectively, it does really adjust future rates as well going forward. So, it may be 6 or half dozen, the same intent, however it's called.
Thank you. Other questions or comments?
Bill Fair.
Go ahead, Bill.
I'm just wondering, when Watson does the study, I don't know if you can comment on it or not, but given the increased population, would that be built in that there would be a lot more users and possibly that would spread the cost over some more? Is that a part of their study?
Leach?
I believe, and other staff can jump in, but normally Watson's does factor in growth projections into the rates over the longer term. They also look at funding certain of the capital works and the debt from development charges, which is paid by growth, and that's based on assumptions around the average number of new residences and other development that's going to occur every year. So there is some allowances made for growth in customers over the years.
Thank you. I think the education component is going to be absolutely vital. I'm not certain we'll be able to convince a lot of people, but they've got to realize, what we can and cannot do and what's brought us to this point in these rates.
Fiona?
Yes, Fiona?
I agree with you, Mayor Martin, and I think the public meeting and the public input is a very important part of this in order for us to be able to convey that to the ratepayers and them to have their say back.
Councillor Kravitz?
And what was the date of the last water rate study?
Years ago.
Roughly.
Mr. Leach?
I believe it was 2018 was the last study.
Yeah. The reason I ask that, because I have a hard time seeing there's going to be much change within a 2-year period from the previous study. It's unfortunate that we can't educate the public in any other way. It's an expensive education tool that we're proposing to buy here, so I have a hard time spending this $23,000 on it.
The other thing that I would say is we have tried very hard at several of our community input meetings to try and educate people about water rates and why they are as they are. And maybe having an independent person who, has no vested interest in any way in this, maybe could answer the questions. And Mr. Scanlon usually is a very good presenter and answers questions well and has good rapport with the public. So I don't know. I understand your concern, Councillor Kravitz, but I do believe that Mrs. Nordeman also found some things that were not even considered or covered in the original rate study that should have been.
So maybe it'll even increase the rates.
Yes.
Yes, if I could speak to that for a moment, Madam Mayor.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so the rate study was updated and unfortunately my power went out. I wasn't able to update the report. So we had originally 2 public meetings and then chose to add public engagement instead of one of the public meetings. So the actual rate in the report, the $24,965, is our top line for the amount that's that's projected to cost. We do have a credit on account, so we would be using that toward the study for a net cost of $16,705 plus taxes. We did find a number of things, and it was a group effort with senior management. It wasn't me who discovered some of those costs that were missing. It was Lloyd. So yes, there is a good chance that the rates could go up after this study. And even with the study as it was, there was a significant amount that was intended to be funded by reserves of the municipality. And as you know from our budget discussions, our reserves are pretty locked up. We don't have a lot left in our savings accounts. So I think that's something that council wants to keep in mind as they make these decisions.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments or questions? Deputy Mayor Marks.
Obviously, none of us are going to like this. I think the public needs to hear from us. Probably, frankly, some of us have been threatened to be thrown out of office. That may happen, but they could put brand new council in, and if they read the facts, they're going to have to make the hard decisions. This is as many nice things as we have in this municipality. The perception is we have high water rates, although we have a couple of other municipalities in the county facing the same dilemma we are, and actually higher rates. So again, we don't have to like this, but we do have to do our job. And that is to follow the water regulations. And I think we need, if there's a mistake made in the past, and that's what I'm hearing, we need to correct it. Then we have to communicate to the public why we're doing this and fasten the seatbelts. I don't like it, but that's part of our job.
Any other comments or questions? If not, I'll ask Diane to read the motion.
Motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Deputy Mayor Marks, seconded by Councillor Fair, that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Central Elgin authorize the update of the water wastewater rate study as proposed by Watson Associates Economists Limited, dated July the 16th, 2020, in the amount of $24,965 plus applicable taxes as per report DFS 2120 update and water wastewater rate study.
Thank you. Would you call the vote, please?
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
Mayor Martin?
Yes.
Resolution carries.
Thank you. We're now going to our fire services, FS 10/20, and these are the alarm reports for June of 20. Any questions on this? If not, would you read the motion, Diane, please?
Reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Deputy Mayor Marks, seconded by Councillor Fair, that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Central Elgin receive report FS 1020, monthly alarm activities report, June of 2020, as information.
Thank you. Call the vote, please.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
Mayor Martin?
Yes.
Resolution carries.
Thank you. Now, the Director of Asset Management and Development Services, AMDS 1820 monthly building report for May. Any questions on that? Not surprising it's down with all that's been going on. Read the motion, please.
Motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Deputy Mayor Marks, seconded by Councillor Roberts, that report AMDS 1820, May 2020 monthly building report be received as information.
Call the vote, please.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin?
Yes.
Resolution carries.
Thank you. Move on to the June monthly building report, or AMDS 2020. Would you read the motion, please?
Madam Mayor, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Fair, seconded by Councillor Roberts, that report AMDS 2020, June 2020 monthly building report be received as information.
Just note that certainly Parking tickets have gone way up because once we opened the beach, our illegal parking jumped. Anyway, anyone else have any comment or question before we vote on it? If not, motion, go ahead and call the motion, please.
Counselor Cook,
Yeah.
Counselor Kravitz,
Yes.
Counselor Fair,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks,
Yes.
Counselor Roberts,
Yes.
Counselor Rowe,
Yes.
and Mayor Martin.
Yes,
The resolution carries.
thank you. Now, AMDS 2120 with a telecommunication tower at 10592 Wellington Road. Does anyone have any questions?
Mayor Martin?
Go ahead, Councillor Rowe.
Yes, thank you. So I was just curious whether or not for this AMDS 2120 and 2220, actually, they're both towers, whether this actually helps either the SWIFT group or the county's wireless group do any of their work any better. That was one question. The second question is, are these for 4G or 5G towers, or do we even know? And the third question is, if Central Elgin's height recommendation is 30 meters and these two are 50 and 80 meters, I was curious about why ours is 30, and should it actually be higher if everything is always going to be coming in 2 to 3 times higher?
Mr. Perrin?
So the answer to the second question is the tower on 11157 Highbury Ave is for Rogers Wireless. It is a 5G tower. The one on Wellington Road is Forbes Communications, and they lease space out. So I believe it will accommodate 5G. And they, I believe, are willing to look at other service providers, providing that it doesn't cause interference with the proponent's communications equipment. With respect to the height of the tower, that was set by, I believe, previous council. The problem with minimizing the height, you end up with more towers in order to get the coverage. So when a proponent like Rogers or Forbes looks at what they are constructing and the service area they're trying to provide, they actually are able to model and come up with a better height of, or what the actual height of tower that's best served for the equipment. Whether we change our tower height, that would be up to council. I would suggest that we probably not at this point. We leave it at 30, but leave it up to the proponents to model what they actually require. Keep in mind that the municipality has no approval authority for telecommunications towers. That approval comes through Industry Canada. In the absence, the municipality has a protocol, but that protocol only speaks to public engagement and make sure that the public is notified of the proposed project, and requires the proponent to undertake that engagement and communicate that in their package submission to Industry Canada. In the absence of a municipality having that protocol, then it reverts back to Industries Canada's protocol, which is less stringent with respect to notification of individual property owners. It's just merely we'll suggest an overarching blanket notification in the newspaper or on a website. Our protocol requires the proponent to notify everyone within a minimum of 120 meters of the subject property, or 3 times the tower height. So that's where our protocol comes in.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, Diane, would you read the motion?
Motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Deputy Mayor Marks, seconded by Councillor Fair, that report AMDS 2120, proposed telecommunications tower 10592 Wellington Road, be received as information.
Call the vote, please.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Cravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Resolution carried.
Thank you. I believe any questions or comments on the second one have already been answered, so would you read the motion, please?
Motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Fair, seconded by Councillor Roberts, that report AMDS 2220, proposed telecommunications tower 11157 Highbury Avenue, be received as information.
Would you call the vote, please?
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Cravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Resolution carries.
Thank you. We're now moving to bylaws. We have quite a few, and most of these came from our special planning meetings that we had. A lot of them did. So Diane, would you read the first motion, please?
First motion reads, Your Worship, moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Rowe, that bylaws 2494, 2495, 2496, 2498, 2499, 2500, 2501, 2502, and 2503 be taken collectively.
Any concerns with that? Councillor Cravitz?
I'd just like to make a comment on the first bylaw, the heads and beds grant. It's rather frustrating when we have a $14 million building sitting across the road from here, in the psychiatric hospital, and yet their tax bill is only $6,675. So it's a frustrating situation. It's something, it's been at $75 a bed for I don't know how many years now. The city of St. Thomas, they get a larger grant for the hospital being located within their boundaries. I just wanted to make the comment that it's a rather frustrating situation, and perhaps something in the future. I know it's been looked at before, but perhaps we could look at it again or make a request to the province. Thank you.
Yes, as you say, it hasn't changed. And of course, there used to be a 2,000 bed hospital here. Now it's 75 and a very large building for 75.
Thank you.
Go ahead and call the vote then.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Cravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin.
Yes.
The resolution carries.
Thank you. Next motion on the bylaws.
Next motion, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Fair, seconded by Councillor Rowe, that bylaws 2494, 2495, 2496, 2498, 2499, 2500, 2501, 2502, and 2503 be read a first and a second time.
Call the vote, please.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Cravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin?
Yes.
Resolution carries.
Thank you. Final motion on the bylaws.
Last motion, Madam Mayor, moved by Deputy Mayor Marks, seconded by Councillor Rowe, that bylaws 2494, 2495, 2496, 2498, 2499, 2500, 2501, 2502 be read a third time and finally passed.
Call the vote, please.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Cravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin.
Yes.
That resolution carries.
Thank you. We have no public notice, no resolutions that I'm aware of. New business.
Fiona.
Go ahead, Fiona.
So first, I just want to send out a thanks to our Central Elgin Fire Service, Earth Power Corporation, their crews, for their help yesterday, their quick response in helping. I still haven't heard whether it's being official, whether it was a tornado that dropped down or whether it was just a very severe wind event that we experienced yesterday. But with the speed that everybody got out to help in the cleanup and ensure people were safe and okay. And especially to our community, neighbors came out and were helping neighbors. I think I had said to council yesterday, I don't think I've heard so many chainsaws going at the same time, but people just picked up and did what needed to be done in order to make sure that things were safe for everybody. Again, a special thanks to our Belmont Town Restaurant for feeding the crews, the Earth Corporation crew, and sending them home with a hot dinner for all of the hours that they spent cleaning up and getting our power restored again. My second that I would like to bring forward is with regards to masks within the county. I've had quite a few people ask me about the municipality's take on it, and I know this is something that would be discussed at the county level, as well with our group that's sort of been overseeing our requirements during COVID. And just wondering if a discussion has been had as to making mask wearing mandatory within public places. Has that come up? I know, we all know there is arguments going both ways. But one of the things I have heard from some businesses is that they are feeling compelled to keep their staff safe, as well as the people who are frequenting their establishments. But it's very difficult to do when it's left to people's choices, or difficult for businesses if they feel it's something that should be mandatory, and then having issues with people not wanting to wear masks to come into their buildings or their businesses. So I'm sure I'm probably not the first person to ask, but just wondering what has been said at the county level, and if there's been any discussion.
Just so you know, yes, and I've had many requests from different businesses to make masks mandatory because they're having real issues with trying to enforce people. They're saying they can't come in their business without a mask, and there has been some very aggressive behavior. So I've been supporting this all along. I've been asking, we talk about it at the health unit, the CAOs who met with the health unit as well. Dr. Locke's intention at the moment is to just do a letter of intention that you should use one. She knows that mandatory masking will come eventually. At the discussion the other day, she was thinking mid-September, but then someone did mention about schools, and if it's going to be mandatory indoors, and especially for children in schools, that decision needs to be made before school starts rather than after school starts. So it is certainly being discussed at both county and the Southwest Public Health, and we've been taking our direction. We want everyone in the whole area to do it together, the same thing, so it's not confusing. I will say Middlesex and London made them mandatory as of Friday night. So we'll see what the public health call tomorrow, what they have to say, what Dr. Locke has to say. I don't know if either Tom or Don want to say anything more.
Can I just add a quick thing to that, a little something extra, if there will be discussion on that, because my only thought is with mid-September. And one of the examples, I guess, is with Port Stanley. Of course, in our area within our county, we did very well with keeping our exposure to COVID low. The problem is now is that we've opened up to everybody else. And in particular, if we look at Port Stanley, we have now opened up the doors for people from all areas. So those areas that may still be having occurrences of COVID happening within them, those people are now able to come into Port Stanley. So by waiting till mid-September to make a decision on that, I feel like we may have missed the boat on it. And then I personally, I just hate the thought of having to go back to being cooped up again. And so whatever pain we can take right now to ensure I don't have to sit in 400 square feet for months again, I would just like to see that we could move forward on it, and I'm not afraid of the fight for the people who are against it.
I agree, and as I say, I've been pushing it all along. The big thing too will be enforcing it. That is a concern, I know, and just staffing to enforce it has been a concern. But I agree, it's definitely something we really seriously need to look at, because I think that's what we all should be doing, very definitely. Mr. Leach, you had something you wanted to say?
Madam Mayor, as you indicated, Dr. Locke, the medical officer of health, is seriously weighing all of the factors in whatever decision she makes as far as requiring masking in indoor spaces, public spaces. She has really three options, or the first option is a Section 22 order where she can order it, and there are fines associated, and that's something that comes with the emergency powers under the provincial legislation. Municipalities can do mandatory masking bylaws. And then the third option is a letter of instruction as referenced, which is more of a public education tool. In all of those cases, the frontline enforcement will fall on the municipality to enforce. And that's the concern some municipalities have been raising with that at this time, our bylaw staff and other staff are, quite maxed out with all of the bylaw issues, not just bylaw issues related to, COVID, but we've seen an increase in complaints in general from the public. So mandatory masking would be looking to the municipality to do either the enforcement or public education. But, Dr. Locke, before she makes a final decision, is taking into contact that input. Staff have provided, Dr. Locke meets on a weekly basis with the CAO for the County of Oxford, the County of Elgin, and the City of St. Thomas, the three principal partners behind the public health unit. And the Elgin County CAO, Julie Gagnon, has certainly sought advice through the control group and also from the CAOs in the county at the local municipality level about what would be involved. So we have indicated, concerns about enforcement, and Dr. Locke needs to sort of put in place all of the plans around her decisions. If universal masking is required, then there's an obligation to start providing masks to people too, because to ensure that everyone may not have the same capacity to purchase or obtain masks. So it's a complicated decision. Like all of the decisions the control group has been making, it's been based on balancing factors and the best possible public health advice through Southwestern Public Health.
I have been encouraging to local businesses, and just when you said all these people coming into Port Stanley, they're coming into Sparta as well, because it's another tourist town. So we're getting lots of people from outside the area, Kitchener, Toronto, Windsor, coming into Sparta as well. So I've been encouraging the local businesses there to make masks mandatory in their shops, and they're giving out masks, but they are still getting tremendous pushback and a lot of aggression from people. One business owner was shoved against a wall and injured because the person said they were going in whether they were masked or not. So it is a real concern, and as John said, we will continue looking at it with the county and with the health unit. Other new business. Okay. Other new business?
Bill Fair.
Go ahead, Bill, and then Dennis.
This is in regards to the sidewalks on Centennial. They did a very, very good job of having gradual slopes wherever there are lanes, and so that people aren't stumbling. It's a nice gradual slope. Recently, we're getting a lot of fill-in lots, and one particular at 165, I had a complaint, and instead of doing the gradual slope on the sidewalk, they've got a pretty abrupt drop there, and some people are concerned. There's joggers, there's a lot of walking traffic, and they're going to trip on that. And I'm just wondering to Mr. Brooks, Is there some after inspection to make sure that they conform properly with the way the standard was in all the other sidewalks and crossings?
Mr. Brooks?
Through you, Mayor Martin. Yeah, I believe there was a deposit taken for the building permit. Mr. Perrin maybe can speak to this, but there is a deposit that we can use against that individual if indeed that sidewalk isn't put back into specification.
Thank you. Mr. Perrin?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the municipality does require a security deposit to be put in place prior to, as a condition of development. So for example, these fill-in lots that are severed, we take a security deposit in the amount of 100% of the cost to install the services. And then we have to be satisfied that those are in place as per our municipal standards prior to releasing that. This just came to our attention this morning, so we're looking at that, and we'll be making a judgment with cooperation of Mr. Brooks to make sure that we're happy with the standard of the sidewalk, and if not, then they will be required to replace some of what they did.
Thank you.
Thank you. I did receive a complaint yesterday by email, which I forwarded to staff concerning that particular drop in that driveway. Mr. Kravitz.
Prior to the pandemic, we had this discussion about our investment in the Earth Corporation with our appointment at the Earth Corporation, where we shortened the term up by 1 year at a request through the Earth Corporation at the time. What I was wondering is, during the pandemic now, to get somebody for another year appointment, I'm wondering if it would be wise to perhaps keep our current member as appointed. And with that, I'd just like to ask Mr. Leach if anything has been done in regards to the Earth appointment.
Mr. Leach?
So Earth's annual meeting is in early September. The intention is that staff would be advertising through CE Buzz in order to have a name for council's next regular meeting, which is in August 24th, that council could consider, so that person could be in place to attend the Earth annual meeting in conjunction with the existing director. Staff have received from the president of Earth the list of skills that are most in demand for an appointment, because Earth has moved towards a skills-based board of directors and other information sample notice for the ad. So actually, based on the direction that staff had received a year ago, staff were going to be advertising that position in the next round of the CE Buzz ads later this week. Actually would be appearing next Wednesday and starting so that council would have names of candidates at the August meeting. That's where staff are at with the process.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious because I just thought it'd be difficult to appoint somebody new at the time with having Zoom meetings and not being able to meet in person with the Earth staff and fellow members of the board. So that was my concern. So
Thank you. There was one incident, I know, just something I would mention, of dogs, an attack on the beach. We have people with dogs on the beach, not on leash, et cetera, and they're not even supposed to have dogs on the beach. So I know that we're looking at the various things with that because it is becoming a major issue and has been for a little bit with dog attacks, and whether the provincial police can come in and lay charges, et cetera. So just a heads up that there was an issue on the weekend in Port Stanley. The one other thing I would just mention is the environmental assessment thing that Minister Yurek brought out. I sure hope that shortens. It says up to 8 years some of them are taking. Well, ours has taken 10 years so far. So we're even beating the list there. And I really hope that it will move Central Elgin's clearing, environmental assessment clearing for the berm and the harbor lands forward quickly. Any other new business? And Mr. Leach, was there something you wish to speak to on the dog thing? Or?
Just to clarify that the incident where it occurred was actually not on municipally owned beach, but it was on a beach almost at the westerly limits of the municipality in Port Stanley, almost towards Southwold. So certainly an area that isn't patrolled at all. Probably considered private beach, whether it is or isn't, but it was not on municipal area rest beach or any of the other municipal beaches. Staff have discussed it, and staff are again going to make sure when they're looking for parking enforcement that they're also enforcing the dogs on the beach, and also the leashing requirements for that. All dogs, regardless of where they are, should be on a leash.
Thank you. Nothing else for new business? If not, then we need a motion to we're going to have to go offline. When we do, we won't be live when we go into closed session. So that this will be a chance for people, if you need to leave or go to a washroom or whatever, that will be your chance. But we'll do the motion first to move in, and then we'll cut off live streaming. So go ahead, Diane, read the motion.
Motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Fair, seconded by Councillor Rowe, that council proceed into closed session at 3:56 p.m. in order to address a matter pertaining to closed session minutes, labor relations or employee negotiations, and security of property and or solicitor-client privilege.
Call the vote, please.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Cravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin?
Yes.
Resolution carries.
Thank you. So we'll take a pause while we go off live streaming and get the doors while the doors are closed.
I'll put the signs up.
Put the signs up. If you need a break, take a quick break.